So I decided to name my phage SmegPowerGod. SmegPowerGod is not a sex party, or a naked party. Here's an electron micrograph. The large capsid size and short tail characteristics of cluster C phages is immediately apparent. Its capsid diameter is 106 nanometers, and its tail length is approximately 90 nanometers, meaning that there's an almost one-to-one correspondence between head and tail size. Other than that, it's a pretty typical cluster C phage. Icosahedron head, stubby tail, and rather difficult to see tail fibers. As I'm sure you're aware, its large head means that SPG has a relatively large genome. I actually found SPG in a rather disgusting pool of standing water near a blocked-up storm drain by the Brown bookstore. It smelled pretty bad. So I began my attempt to isolate SPG using enrichment, allowing the phage to proliferate within its sample. From there, I moved on to 4 rounds of purification. This is my 10 to the negative 2 plate from my 4th round. As you can see, SPG likes to form relatively high quantities of rather small plaques. All the plaques I could discern were clear, meaning that SPG is exclusively lytic, though it was a little difficult to tell given their size. I counted my plaques using Adobe Illustrator, which gave me a titer of approximately 1.89 times 10 to the 6 plaque-forming units per milliliter, which was fairly close to my average of 4.76 plaque-forming units per milliliter. The range of titers I got during purification were between 1.8 and 8 times 10 to the 6 plaque-forming units per milliliter. I then used my 10 to the negative 1 plate as a web plate, and flooded to produce an MTL. Unfortunately, said MTL was later found floating in water, so I wasn't actually able to get a titer of it. However, I synthesized 5 more web plates using the same technique as was used to produce my 10 to the negative 1 plate, to produce an HTL. I was able to get a titer of the HTL, 4.10 times 10 to the 10 plaque-forming units per milliliter. I had about 70 milliliters of this HTL, meaning I had a lot of phage to work with. I used this HTL to get the EMs you saw earlier and to begin DNA prep. My first DNA prep was rather difficult due to the columns getting clogged. However, it resulted in DNA that was extremely concentrated, which I was fairly happy about. However, something happened, and in my gels I only got really faint runs, or amusingly, ones that ran backwards. My second attempt at DNA actually yielded even more concentrated results, with a nanodrop reading of 1118.8 nanograms per microliter, and a perfect 1.8 260 to 280 ratio. QCs looked pretty good too, though there was an element of streakiness that I wasn't totally happy about. I then analyzed my restriction digests from my first DNA prep, which were faint but still usable. I used them to verify that my phage was in fact cluster C1. C2 phages are quite rare, and certain enzymes like CLAI and NGOMB don't cut their genomes. So that's how I got to where I am right now. You should vote SmegPowerGod, because I managed to get an incredibly high DNA concentration, with great quality of DNA, I have lots of extra lysate in case something goes wrong, and it has a great name. More importantly, however, we cannot let this system of DNA oppression continue. Only you can fight against phage discrimination. Vote for Cluster C today.